Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dark Pixel Podcast. My name is Mike.
My name's Landon.
I'm Kason.
My name is Shetz. Matthew Shezmen. Hey, guys.
Matthew Shezmen. If you guys have not heard of his YouTube channel, search Matthew Shezmen, or we have the link in the description. You can check it out as well. He's a cartoon animator. You want to talk for a minute about what you do on your channel? What inspired you to start making videos?
I have a YouTube channel. Yeah, I do animations of video games. I've been doing that for 3 years. No, actually way more, like 4 or 5 years. But yeah, maybe these last 3 years I've been doing more like video game parodies exclusively. And yeah, I started streaming recently also on Twitch where I animate live, and it's kind of interesting to do that. Yeah, so that's what I do. I basically do that and that's it because it takes too much time, you know. I can't do other stuff, so it's my full activity, you know.
How much time would you say on average it takes you to do one of your videos?
It depends on the video. Like maybe the longest video that took me the most was maybe the Dark Souls parody actually, or maybe the Fallout. It was the Fallout parody. Oh no, sorry, the Dark Souls parody. Yeah, it was like maybe 800 hours, maybe more. But yeah, you know, every week it's kind of difficult to fit other stuff like games also. But especially during the Final Fantasy parody, it was kind of more easier to fit other stuff. I don't know why. Maybe, you know, I get faster at doing stuff, so that's good, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So we have Matthew on with us today because we want to talk a little bit about Mario Odyssey. I've been playing it a lot, well, as much as I can. I've gotten up to about New Donk City. I bought it late, so I got it maybe like November 29th or 30th. I can't remember which day exactly last week, but it was last week sometime. So I've played it as much as I could, as much as time afforded me, and Matthew wanted to talk about the animation and just cartoon animation and how excellent it is in the game, that sort of thing. So we have some topics, some questions you guys asked specifically about that. So we'll get into that a little bit, and we'll tap into Matthew's knowledge of animation a little. But let's go over the rest of the topics. First one, Nintendo is partnering with Nvidia to bring a select number of Wii games. They're going to remaster them in HD and bring them to China. It's an interesting piece of news. No mention of anything of whether those would make their way over to other territories outside of China, but they will be going to China on the Nvidia Shield. So
yeah, not the Switch, which is
right.
But this does come around the same time that Nintendo is going to be selling the Switch in Taiwan and I believe Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Okay.
But not mainland China. So the way that they're going to go into mainland China is, I guess, through the Nvidia Shield, which is weird, I think. Mm-hmm. But I know mainland China does not like Japan. And I don't know how hard a time Nintendo would have it, you know, going directly in. But Nvidia, they're not Japanese. All right, let's let them do business.
But it's the same architecture, right? Like the hardware.
Yeah,
is
it's the same chip. Yeah, the same graphics card.
Yeah, the same chip. Exactly, it's the same chip. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Tegra X1.
Yeah, the Tegra X1. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the second topic, there's been some buzz about some censorship, specifically some members of UK Parliament who are making a big deal out of this Detroit Become Human scene, where there's some abuse that's going on between a father and daughter. We want to talk a little bit about what the grievances are there, especially since the last couple of weeks we've talked about some governments getting involved with stopping loot boxes and classifying that as gambling, and governments getting in there and trying to regulate that, but then like they're also having some discussion about censoring other things in games. So we want to talk a little bit about that and see if we can sort out where we we stand on the topic.
Yeah, everyone was all for it when the government stepped in to keep loot boxes out, but now they're realizing that government stepping in means government. I mean, they want to control more than just whether you're gambling in your game or not. They want to control the content and all that stuff. So it's kind of a net negative, I'd say. Because you could have just not bought Battlefront 2, right? It didn't matter whether they banned it or whatever. But if they can censor video games for you, you don't have a choice. You can't play it any other way.
Yeah.
All right. Third topic is from Squarehard Gaming. Is asking us about for a game like Final Fantasy VII, which we haven't had a lot of news about in a long time, right? How useful is it when you're trying to revitalize some excitement about something to change the aesthetic? This is a question that he wanted to ask specifically for Matt, since he was going to be here with us today. So we'll get into more of the context of that a little bit later. Daniel Imperial, also a question directed at Matt. I often hear about musicians being inspired by other musicians and artists being inspired by other artists. When it comes to animation, does inspiration come in the same way? And if so, did playing through Mario Odyssey and seeing the quality of animation in that game inspire you? Okay. And then the last question from Tyler White. Now that Square has announced character swapping in Final Fantasy 15, do you think that they did this, if they had done this upon release, it would have made 15 a better overall and higher rated game? That was actually literally announced the day that our podcast went up last week. The fact that character swapping was
they had a few announcements there, actually.
I left a comment too on the video. Yeah.
So let's get into this. Nintendo.
I should maybe mention that I I need to speak a little soft because it's kind of late here. So it's gonna be kind of a contrast between you guys speaking normally and me like trying to whisper.
Yeah.
So also I didn't say that I'm Italian, I think. So
there you go.
Maybe the accent is gonna give it away. But yeah. So other part of the world.
Different time zones. It's almost 2 a.m. there for you. So.
Yeah.
No problem though.
We're good.
Okay,
so let's jump into our first topic here. Nintendo partnering with Nvidia to bring HD remastered Wii games to China. So we as Kason was saying a little earlier, there's some bad blood between Japan and mainland China.
Nintendo doesn't sell their stuff in China.
They haven't done a lot of business in mainland China. And the video game industry as a whole has been trying to break into that market just because of the massive
consoles were banned.
People.
Yeah, China literally banned consoles. Do you remember back a couple of years ago too that there was like a bunch of like rioters in China were like breaking into Japanese businesses because of the Senkaku Islands and stuff, like burning them down and stuff. Like it was.
Toyota took a big hit from that.
They did, and one of their manufacturing plants got burned, which was actually a Foxconn owned plant or something. I can't remember if it was Foxconn, but it was owned by Taiwan. And they burned that down, but they were trying to get at the Japanese, but they burnt down a Taiwanese anyways. But yeah, some crazy bad blood, that's for sure.
Yeah, so this makes a lot of sense to me that they would, because this is kind of unheard of, like Nintendo basically licensing or creating games to be distributed on a platform that is not their own, not a first-party Nintendo handheld platform.
Last time they did it was with the Philips CD thing back in the early 90s, where we got those crappy Zelda games that no one talks about. Yeah,
but Nintendo didn't make those ones.
They didn't make them, but they did license their properties to a different system. But you're right, there's a difference because they didn't actually make it. And this one, it's ones they actually made.
Yeah, and not only that, it's going to be, I guess, potentially a definitive version of them because they're HD remasters of the game, so they look better than the originals. Now, what's interesting about this is actually something Shetz was touching on, is that the technology in the Nvidia Shield is essentially, the graphics card is essentially the same one that's in the Nintendo Switch. So they're developing an HD remaster of some of these Wii games. They haven't necessarily said which ones they're going to be. But
we do know a couple.
Oh, do we? Which games?
The new Super Mario Brothers. Mario Galaxy will be coming next year or something. Wasn't Metroid?
Twilight Princess,
and
Super Punch Out.
Oh, so there are already some games in the eShop from the Wii on the Switch?
No, not on the Switch.
No,
This is
on
going to be
the
they're
only
on they're only in China, and they'll be on the Nvidia Shield.
Oh, they're already on the show. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
so they're gonna be
is that
talking
being
about-
sold this week, or is that
I
coming?
don't know the timeline exactly.
Yeah, I don't know the timeline either. This news
so-
just broke for us, so.
Mm-hmm.
In any case, it's really interesting because this announcement comes before still we have any word on when there will be a virtual console on
Yeah,
the Switch at all.
Yeah,
And what it's, well, we know there's going to be one, and we know there's going to be a monthly fee for it.
right.
But we
just
don't know
what, yeah.
whether they're going to have Wii games or GameCube games, or if it's just going to be NES and Super Nintendo, or what it's going to be. We still don't have any of that information. But we do know that they have at least made HD remasters of the games they just mentioned.
Yeah, several Wii games.
Are we going to get that on the Virtual Console on the Switch?
Yes. Yes.
Really?
They
The answer
wouldn't
is
do
yes.
it unless they were going
The answer
to.
is the work has been done.
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's funny because
that-
it's Nintendo. Like, they
Easy
remake
buck.
old games, and yeah, they make a lot of money off of nostalgia. Like, they aren't going to miss the opportunity.
Yeah. Plus, I think one of the issues with the Wii, for me at least, was the resolution. You know, aside from the textures, I'm very fixated into graphics usually more than gameplay sometimes. But I feel like, you know, Wii games, they're not like super enjoyable, mostly for the resolution thing. I remember when Mike was talking about the new, you know, Mario Odyssey, and he was like concerned about the resolution because he was maybe at E3, and he said, you know, the resolution of the game looks kind of, you know, low res. And, you know, even if you have like beautiful assets, if the resolution is very low, it's like a shame, you know. So maybe having Wii games on a higher resolution, that would be awesome, you know. Like,
Right,
for example,
you might see
even
stuff you didn't see before.
yeah, I would maybe play stuff that I didn't even like wanted to play. Like there was like a game called the one in like black and white that was very stylish. It was kind of a bloody game, you know, kind of
Mad
a
World?
gory Mad World. Yeah, I couldn't play it because it was too confused because of the low pixels, you know. So stuff like that will be interesting, you know, playing it with a higher resolution. Even maybe, you know, Twilight Princess, even though that was remastered. So
Right,
Yeah.
you've got that one.
and also, you know,
Have
for
you
the
played the
longest
remaster?
time. No. I don't know why.
Nintendo did a great job.
Except for the birds.
I know it's good. I know it's good, but it's like, you know, I like Zelda games that like differentiate with a more like unique aesthetic. So
Sure.
I don't have a huge time to play games usually, so I prioritize games that are more stylized, like, you know, Wind Waker, obviously,
Yeah.
and or maybe older stuff, you know. But yeah, I think that some Wii games with higher resolution will be really interesting. Even Mario Galaxy, you know, because it was stunning looking, but the resolution was like maybe almost like the Nintendo 64, maybe a little bit more.
It was like
I
the
think.
GameCube. It was
480p.
basically
Like the GameCube, so
Yeah,
it was
like the
kind of
GameCube.
low, you know.
right.
And also another thing that I wanted to say that I have my notes here. For the longest time, I saw like people on YouTube trying to, you know, like miniaturize GameCubes and Wii that you can bring, you know, whenever you want to go. I don't know if you guys saw on YouTube people trying to like take a GameCube and make it like you can bring it, you know,
Yeah, I've seen
outside,
that. Yeah,
like some
yeah.
Frankenstein things.
Yeah.
And so that will be, you know, finally being able to play Mario Sunshine on the go on the Shield. That will be awesome
Oh
if
yeah.
you think about it, you know.
Yeah.
If they
So-
come to America, though, I would hope they don't come here on the Shield. I would assume they'll come here on the Switch.
I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah.
they would. I feel like this is right now. There's no hardware in China other than this.
Right? No
And
one has.
I do think Japan. I mean,
I
not
think the
Japan.
Shield's cheaper too.
Nintendo has more of a focus right now, obviously, on China than they ever have. They're
Yeah.
because most companies that want to seek like massive growth right now, they're investing in China. They're pushing into
Yeah.
China. That's kind of
That's
where
true, yeah.
there's a massive consumer base to connect with that has not been exposed to a lot of
Was
the
it like-
stuff people in the West have been enjoying.
Was it like one of the most played games that I never tried actually, like PUBG?
Yeah,
think
that's
they,
it.
they
Big in
made
China.
like a specific version, mobile version that is on its
Yeah.
own.
Oh,
you know.
there is one.
And the Chinese Communist Party had them put because they didn't want it to be
put,
like a
messages.
Western, yeah. And then they put a bunch of Chinese flags up.
Yeah.
So where you're running around, you see Chinese flags and stuff. And so you do have to change your games for them to be playable in China because
That's a
everything
paradox,
in China
you know?
has to
Yeah.
follow the Communist Party's like rules, which is partly why
Right.
Chinese media you'd never see it because it's not very popular worldwide because it's all propaganda.
Yeah.
But in order to get into them, you have to put that propaganda in. So I wonder what Nintendo changed about like Mario Galaxy to make it conform to Chinese communist values.
It's gonna
just
be
said-
ugly. It's gonna be very ugly to see.
He's wearing he's wearing the overalls.
He's
and
wearing
the
red. Yeah, that's worker
That's a
party.
communist worker
Yeah.
uniform, dude.
Instead
right
of he'll throw
You're gonna
hammer and
have-
sickles.
You're gonna have
instead of fire.
additional costumes in Mario Odyssey, I guess, even though there are so many already.
So you
Oh
know
my
what's
God.
something
Yeah.
crazy I read recently is that
Terrible.
Kentucky Fried Chicken. Shets, do they have Kentucky Fried Chicken in Italy?
No, we don't have that. Though,
You don't?
you know, I
Yeah.
was in the US for maybe like 7 times in the US I've been. So
Oh, wow.
for me,
So
the
you know
US is
KFC.
kind of.
Okay,
Yeah,
so there are more right now. There are more Kentucky Fried Chickens in China than there are in the United States.
What?
That should give you an idea of
Wow.
the potential for
Wow.
any company to grow in China,
Yeah.
right? Like everyone's seeing it, Nintendo's seeing it. It's just you've got to go through loopholes sometimes to access the people.
Totally.
Right? Yeah.
And
More
with
people
China,
like-
there are lots of loopholes.
Yeah, the main thing is that it's more people, you know. So
Yeah,
maybe it
lots.
will be slow, you know, at the beginning, but it's gonna be like explosive, and you know, it's gonna be like a huge. It's gonna be huge for these corporation
Yeah.
fast, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. In any case, I think it's really exciting news because I agree with Landon. I think that this is more or less a pretty sure thing that if the work's done, we will see this come to the Switch.
Yeah.
Some Wii HD remastered games coming to the Switch. I would love to see the first Xenoblade Chronicles, which would be perfect now that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is out. And a lot of other games on the Wii. Like Shetz was saying, I think my favorite Mario aesthetic is Mario Galaxy. Of all the Mario games, I feel like that one looks the best in terms
That
of
rim
style
lighting,
to me.
man.
Looks really
It's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
It's
the
great.
360. Yeah.
Yeah, it just looks really cool. And so playing that
It's
game
crazy.
in HD would be awesome. Now, I know there's going to be the obligatory, just play it on a Dolphin emulator. We've been playing that in 4K for years.
With broken
I-
textures.
That's fine. I know you can. I'm saying it would be nice to have like a legitimate, like, legal way of playing an HD
Yeah, it's true.
Mario game.
Yeah, I
And
think
it's hard to get a Dolphin
Galaxy.
emulator on the go.
That's
You
true.
get your PC for that.
That's true too.
Yeah, but
Unless you can do it on the Shield,
emulators
maybe
are
you can.
very,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, CPU heavy, you know, like emulators
true.
usually. So it's gonna be like for battery, it's gonna be impossible to handle it. But yeah, you're right, Mike. Like Mario Galaxy was like, I think the first game that kind of tried to mimic the Pixar 3D, you know, kind of animation.
Yeah.
If you think
cool.
about
I
it,
see that.
because I don't think Sunshine was that, you know, like
Not really.
it's just like a little difference in the type of animation that seems like the expression are very much more like Pixar in Odyssey and also in Galaxy rather than Sunshine and the one, you know, before. And it's not like a limitation of the, you know, a historical limitation, like you cannot do some expressions because you don't have the hardware or the polygons, you know. It's just that they try to go on that route, you know, like especially with Mario Odyssey. Like at the beginning of the game, you can see Mario being very like, huh, you know, like some very exaggerated expression, which I don't like too much. I'm gonna say like that type of style, like you know, Pixar basically or Disney Pixar is a little bit too. I don't know. I prefer like a more Japanese like anime or old school video game type of thing rather than doing something that is more like, it almost feels like, you know, with a Rabbids game.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Even with the sound design of the character in Odyssey, they're not like cute voices like, whee, you know, they're more like blah, 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 you know. So I feel like they're trying to make it a little more like for the audience from the, you know, non-Japanese audience. So I don't know what you guys think, but it looks like that for me. Even the cap, like the expressions, it's very Pixar-like rather than Mario-like to me.
Interesting. I don't mind the Pixar at all, but I see what you're saying. Mario as an anime would be crazy.
It's very well done. It's very fluid.
That's the next Mario game. He goes into the wall and he turns into an anime character.
He's an anime, dude. Which is like, did you see that new Batman, Ninja Batman anime that they're going to be putting out?
Yeah.
I have heard of it, yeah.
Dude.
I saw like a poster
cool.
and I was like, what? What is this? Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I understand.
So have you been playing Xenoblade 2 at all, Shetz? Because I have a question about it.
No, actually no. And I was watching your Final Fantasy Part 7. You were talking about, the lip sync, and made me think about, Xenoblade, actually, Xenoblade 2. And the fact also that it's like outrageous that the lip sync is very bad made. But instead in Final Fantasy 13 is actually, they take care of that. So it was...
Yeah, it's pretty rare to see them change lip sync from Japanese to English.
What I've noticed is that, that's a huge, problem with the game. It's very distracting, actually, But yeah, sorry, I didn't want to...
No, I was just going to say, if you had seen, because you said you're into Japanese animation a little bit more than, say, Disney Pixar, they incorporate a lot of... like anime-style animations in Xenoblade 2, which makes sense because the whole aesthetic is moving more towards anime.
Yeah.
But where they'll do like the big sweat drops and like the cross like eyes, you know what I mean? Where it's like a shine into it, and it's like a cross on the eyes, and like they'll do the big white eyes with the dark like black outline around them for when they're like
like giving like a little
so
bit
is that the kind of
shade,
thing that you appreciate too, or are you not so much?
No, actually I think that like even when I do my kind of animation, what I like is not even the exaggerated anime, like maybe, do you guys know Ranma, or maybe Sailor Moon, I don't know, like
sure.
Yeah, you guys know when you have the typical Japanese anime where the eyes are super super wide. Maybe have you guys ever seen Escaflowne? It's an old anime from the 90s.
Escaflowne,
okay, so that style I don't like it. I like more of a style that it's like in between Disney and anime. So it will be maybe like Cowboy Bebop, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking the Watanabe Shinichiro stuff.
Also because if you go for that style that is kind of a mix between the two, even the effect of the expression and stuff, it's more serious, I guess. I mean, it ends up being more realistic in the end, because if you have characters that are more, the proportion are more realistic, it's kind of subjective that, actually objective that it looks more realistic, just, Yeah,
so I would actually disagree with you on the if Mario Odyssey, or if Mario should take that kind of look because of the realism, I guess. A realistic Mario,
but yeah,
doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I think that it should be more stylized, in my opinion. Yeah. Like what I don't like about Odyssey, I mean, I love Odyssey. I absolutely love it. But if I have to be like super nitpicking, it would be that I prefer going on a more classical Japanese type of animation rather than the rabbit style, which is I think rabbits are from France, I think.
Yeah, it's
like
Ubisoft.
The idea. And I don't like French animation.
Yeah, Ubisoft is French Canada.
What do you think of
like Caillou?
And you know what though, in Odyssey they did something kind of bold, I would say, which is mixing, since the game is about traveling all around the world, like even the trailer, the first thing that you see is the dinosaur, the T-Rex, So I was kind of scared that using that realistic setting was gonna be very like clashing together, like the normal cartoony Mario was gonna clash with the realistic assets like the T-Rex, very realistic textures. I think I have a note here. There are some things in the game. Let me see. Yeah, they are super realistic. Let me see. There are some, like for example, the people in New Dunk City.
Yeah, what did you think? Did you think Mario blended well with that, or do you think that wasn't done well?
I mean, in the end, you get used to it. But my first reaction, even when playing the game and also the trailer, was like, this is kind of creepy.
Yeah, Mario's like 3 feet tall, and yeah.
Yeah, but even the faces are it's like a discrepancy between the art style. I think it's well done. In the end, they pull it off, well. I think by looking at the whole game, but I, as an animator, I think that having like a cohesive creation where the art style is the same throughout the whole piece of art, it's more enjoyable at the end. Instead, I feel that maybe in Odyssey there's a wider. It's like they try to mix a lot of stuff together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does it feel like Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah, kind of. Oh yeah, there's also it's kind of a spoiler, but there's also some Dark Souls situations. I'm not kidding. It's like what is going on? Like I can't tell you, but it's some like realistic medieval stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting. Of course, because it's awesome. But it's still, kind of it clashes, with the idea of Mario, which is very cartoony, I should say, But it's still interesting. They have to do something different, and I don't even know what the new Mario will be. Maybe a mix between Splatoon. I don't know. I was thinking about that. What do you guys think? What will be the next one? Even though you haven't finished the game or played it.
The next
Mario.
No idea.
Yeah,
if this one sells, because one of the interesting things that AG Alnuma said about Breath of the Wild was after the sales of the game went through the roof and basically made the Switch into like a successful system right off the bat. He said that the next Zelda would likely be using the same type of open world, mechanics as Breath of the Wild.
On the same foundation.
Yeah, if Breath of the Wild was so successful and they're just going to keep going with that, Mario Odyssey has been super successful too. I would maybe assume that the same logic applies there. Is that the next, they made Mario Galaxy 2 after Mario Galaxy 1 was
it's true. Yeah.
Ever. I would see them following in Odyssey's
Mario
mechanic.
Iliad.
Yeah, but I think that there's a huge problem that could come up about quantity versus quality. My first concern when watching, Mario Odyssey and the trailer when it came out was the idea that having more moons, like so many moons to collect.
Yeah, there's like 3,000.
Yeah, but I can tell you right now that unfortunately, in my opinion, it's awesome. It's awesome, but still having less stuff to do, but it's more unique and well structured.
More difficult, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Mario Sunshine. Like I think my favorite will be Mario Sunshine. And I think that having more quality instead of quantity. There are some moons in Mario Odyssey that are very almost stupid, and when you play it, it's difficult to explain. But if you try to get something and it's very difficult to get it, and some moons are actually difficult to get. But then you do another side mission where you have to stomp something on the sand, and you get the same type of reward. In your mind, you're kind of confused. I don't know how to explain it. It's difficult to articulate it for me, but the reward is always the same, basically. So it's kind of underwhelming sometimes,
Yeah.
You get the same reward, moons, but some of them are super easy, like stupidly easy. And some instead of killing a boss or more complicated stuff where you have to explore a lot. So you will see, I guess, when you play it. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's still good. It's still awesome. But you get more hours from the game, but it's not necessarily a good thing.
Right. It's not quality. It's not as much quality. Yeah.
I almost feel like an Assassin's Creed syndrome. You know what I mean? Like doing so much stuff,
Thing,
people had a similar argument for the Koroks in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I know, I
Or
know.
Korok
I never,
seeds.
I haven't played it
Yeah.
yet. Maybe tomorrow I will know.
Play it, man.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
it's gonna be
Koroks
awesome.
are great, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I know. And also another thing will be maybe the fact that the Switch is kind of at the peak of its capability, I feel. And when it comes to Breath of the Wild, which is, if I'm correct, cel shaded, which obviously I appreciate because it's very Miyazaki cartoon. You know what I mean. In Mario, for the reason that I just explained, the fact that they use T-Rexes, real people, and bump textures on the skyscraper, super realistic. The game, I think, like the sceneography of the game, like like the disposition of objects in the map is less rich because they had to have less polygons on screen. But a game like Breath of the Wild, the textures are very low res.
Yeah,
But
they're pretty plain.
But that's because they can use the cell shading, so
Yeah.
they don't have a problem
Flats.
of textures. But in a game like Mario Odyssey, they have somehow to, use less polygons because the textures are very heavy. And so I think that we are reaching the peak with realistic graphics. Even I saw the Digital Foundry analysis of Xenoblade Chronicles today,
Yeah.
and they were saying that like the scaling of the resolution is so crazy that the game sometimes looks very ugly. So I think like we are seeing the peak, and games that are stylized in cell shading could be what we're gonna see in the future on the Switch, because at least you can do something more pleasing to the eye, but it's not tanking the console.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I'm all for that. I like
Yeah.
that.
Me too.
Yeah, too. I think it's a good thing actually.
Okay, so let's put a pin in that because there's some extra stuff I want to talk about with Mario Odyssey. Let's return to that in a minute.
Yes.
Let's move on to this conversation about censorship, people calling for censorship in Detroit Beyond Human and a little bit in The Last of Us Part 2. So the trailers that went up recently for both games, the one especially for The Last of Us 2, was incredibly violent and brutal. I was a little bit surprised.
I haven't seen
Me
it because I
too.
love The Last of Us, but I didn't want to see it because I don't even watch like trailers for movies. Like I haven't
Okay.
seen the trailer for Star Wars, the new one. I haven't seen it.
either.
Me neither.
Yes. Hold
Me
out.
neither.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. They spoil you the game. Sorry,
They do.
the movie.
They do.
That's true.
So, anyways, it is incredibly violent. I was a little bit surprised myself that they made something that violent for, like,
Just
general
an ad.
public viewing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus reserving that for the game and putting something together that's a little bit less for mature audiences. I didn't see the thing about Detroit Become Human until today when I was looking at this news story. By the way, thank you, Chocolate Rob, for pointing us in the direction of this. But in any case, apparently there's a part of the story involving a robot that's in the home of an abusive father, and there's the robot gets involved in trying to protect the girl, and there's QuickTime events similar to
Heavy Rain, maybe.
Heavy Rain.
Heavy Rain. Yeah.
Where if you mess them up, you can have one instance where the girl is killed, and then in another instance, the father is killed. I mean, it's pretty heavy stuff, like really, really heavy stuff, right? But it's a mature rated game, so it's meant for adult audiences only. Now, this has kind of blown up a bit to the point where members of the UK Parliament are discussing whether or not video games should have this kind of
sensitive
content
material.
in them at all. And what they're pushing for the most part, I'll provide a link in the description to a YouTube video that sort of touches on, it goes over a lot of the quotes from these people, what they're calling for, what they're saying about it. But to paraphrase it all, essentially what's going on is that the argument they're trying to make is that this topic should not be used for entertainment purposes. And that's specifically the thing I want to rebut and address a bit. But in addition to that, I want to talk about how many people were for or were happy that governments, was it the Belgian government?
Yeah.
That was basically declaring loot boxes gambling, essentially. Or they're trying to. They haven't done it yet.
Right, that hasn't
they're
happened.
trying.
Thank God.
Right.
Thank God.
So,
Thank God.
so there are people who are all for that, but obviously are going to not like the fact that a government is trying to step in and say what kind of content can and cannot be in a video game when it comes to sensitive social issues like this or domestic issues.
Right.
So I guess the first where I want to start is that I think to most people watching this, you'll certainly agree with what I'm about to say, but just because a piece of media has a sensitive issue like domestic abuse in it does not mean it's glorifying it or that it's meant to be entertaining. Just because it's a game doesn't mean they're turning abuse into a game. It doesn't mean you're participating. It doesn't mean you're pressing X to beat the person. Like, they're acting as if the intent is to... and now there are some games that have done that. What was that game that came out a couple years ago, which
Like
is basically...
Postal?
There's that, and then there was another one where you were turned into a mass shooter.
I mean, that's
Maybe
Hatred.
hatred. Yeah,
Hatred is the game I'm thinking of.
Ridiculous.
Now, those games were meant to actually make a game out of mass murder and shootings, that sort of thing. That unsettled me. I did not like it. Should it be banned or not? I mean, that's a different issue to talk about. It's a really hard thing to say. But in this case, I think it's so extremely clear that they're not trying to make it entertaining. It's the opposite. They want you to sympathize with people who go through this. They want to bring awareness to the issue. They want to use a creative, artistic outlet to say something about the fact that this is prevalent, that this is an issue in the world, and to make people aware of that. And they don't want you to be entertained by it at all, I promise. So I think that to a large extent, they're missing the point. But whether or not they are, you take the hatred or Postal example, or you take the loot box example, and what... I don't know if I want to turn this into a political discussion necessarily.
No, I don't think it's
to what
political.
extent should government be involved in your industries?
Where do we draw that line, and where can you draw that line, and when is it okay to be regulated and not? Because obviously kids you don't want to expose to that, but this isn't for kids. This
game is
specifically
rated
for
M.
adults.
That
should be
that's
clear,
the whole
right?
thing. Like trying to channel things like simple advertising, like even for YouTube and what happened lately, you just have to, there's an audience for that kind of content, and that's it. I mean, on my videos, if I say a swear word every now and then, on my videos, I shouldn't be penalized by not having monetized the video, like having demonetized the video.
By the way, do you get hit by not advertiser friendly a lot?
Yeah, man. I got
You do?
No, not a lot actually.
Oh yeah, sometimes.
I got a hit on the Doom parody. I think there was like some sort of joke that they didn't like, even if they reviewed the parody. I actually asked for the manual review. Yeah.
All right, continue
and also,
your point though. I didn't mean to.
Yeah. Okay. So what I was gonna say. I don't remember. In my case, on my videos, if you demonetize the entire video, it doesn't make any sense. But if you actually have some humans taking care of the how to vehiculate, maybe, is that the right word? Like the advertisement that you have needs to go in the right way. You cannot like demonetize completely a video. You know that if someone does, for example, a cartoon where there's like some shooting or maybe some violence, on my video it will be played an ad about, I don't know, Max Payne or other games that are similar, But
Sure.
The thing is that, many times there's no people behind these decisions, basically. And so they just demonetize and disincentive people from just swearing or exposing some violence, or there's no selection of they don't. I don't know how to explain it actually, but
I see what you're saying. But in the Parliament's case, there are people who are selecting it, but they're old people who don't play
which
video
is even
games.
worse. Yeah,
I know. It's like I'd rather have a computer filter through the stuff than these people.
But yeah, content that is like mature needs to have advertisement that is mature. It just, you choose to play that game because it's made for your age. So just have to be more well done, the selection of advertisement. And people that play hatred, I mean, it's okay. They just have to be, to follow the rules, I guess. So,
Right.
But I think we're going out of the whole discussion. I'll let you go back into the
for years they've been debating whether or not video games affect or raise violence in kids and in people. There's been no definitive evidence through all the studies so far that it does, or that it affects it directly. They have some studies that will sort of circumvent it and make it more vague, where they'll say aggression. They'll use
it raises
aggression,
certain hormones,
but they won't.
Or they'll be less likely to help a person later.
Right.
Yeah. But there is nothing that directly ties playing a violent video game to a child or a person being more likely to then go and harm someone in real life, or be violent in real life, or go kill someone in real life.
Yeah, in the interview, in the video was saying like an abuser can go off on this, was saying the interviewer in the YouTube video that you posted on the question for today. It was like saying an abuser can go off on this. Like I think it's absolutely not true. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, an abuser would never even play a video game, I think. It's like, it's not in his sensibility to play a game. So this whole thing, to me, doesn't make any sense. And I think that, gamers, like, usually observe emotion from the outside rather than taking part. I seriously don't know a single person that plays GTA because they actually want to run over people. It's just
maybe they're the super ego. Maybe subconsciously they do want to do it.
Yeah. Okay. You can argue that. Yeah, you can argue that. But the whole abusing thing, it's a very heavy topic that I think it usually doesn't. I know. And also another thing that I wanted to say is like Hellblade. I think it's called the game. If you again, an abuser can go off on this, doesn't make any sense, because like in my experience, I want to play Hellblade, but I haven't played it because I'm kind of scared, because in the past, I'm not gonna say that I was hearing voices, but I was like, for stress, for work, I had like maybe some paranoid, and so playing a game that makes you feel sick, it's kind of, I don't want to play. I know that it's kind of a discussion that was, an old guy would say, like, I don't want to see Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I want to see it because artistically is very interesting. Like, I think also Mike said that the game is awesome, so I want to try it because, like, you want to see Schindler's List, even though it's, it makes you sick. But I want to play Hellblade, but I'm not gonna do that because I'm not in the mood to live that emotion, And so, if you want to play this game called what was it? Detroit.
Become Human. Yeah.
You just have to understand what you're looking for. It's not like this game is not gonna be played by people that play, I don't know, games that are like Dance Revolution. It's gonna be played by people that wants to explore that aspect, the contradiction and stuff that it's controversial.
Ironically, this video game is more like a movie than like pretty much any other video game that you can play, like Heavy Rain, all this stuff.
Because it's all action time, right?
So it's more like watching a movie.
Yeah, but there's already a in the first, like, when you when you choose to play this game, you have an audience that is directed to, you know what I mean? That's the thing that I was saying at the beginning, that this game has to be targeted to the people that can understand the dynamic of, you know, what happens on screen. Even Wolfenstein 2, the new Colossus, is, I think, even more controversial, you know? You just have to understand the controversy, and it's not going to be for young people. It's going to be for people that for people that maybe watches even TV series that are very controversial, that they talk about heavy stuff. You know what I mean? So this game is going to be for people, and it's, you know, it doesn't have to be advertised to a super young audience, but not because, you know, for censorship, because they cannot understand abuse and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, and so like to your point, like you were saying, there's movies like Schindler's List, things out there people would not want to get rid of. This is almost more a movie than a video game, so it is very funny to see them go after this, where it's a video game where you press a button every now and then.
Yeah, but it's an animated
It's
film.
mostly a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie.
But you know, a lot of this does boil down to, like, think of the children, right? A lot of these government initiatives are centered around talking about children.
Yeah.
And that's
Rated
usually
M
how.
game. Why are children factored into this at all? Unless you're not enforcing, the video game industry isn't enforcing things right, or they're not enforcing who can buy a rated M game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They just attach the word game with kids, and
Exactly.
because if it's a movie, nobody bats an eye. But if it's a game, just the word game.
Exactly. Isn't that weird?
I think we have to still get like 10 years under the belt to, you know, shake off that, connection between games and young people. It's gonna be like maybe 10 years.
It might
and
be
then
a
it's gonna
while.
be more easy to disconnect the two things and treat a video game like something very serious, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why if people dare to do heavy topics, it's very controversial right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's just a problem that people cannot be, right now, is not ready, I guess.
But see, the interesting thing is that there's already countries that do what we're talking about right now. You already have Germany, Australia.
Yeah.
This is already happening in different
Heavy
places. And so you can look to those as
censorship.
case studies of what happens in those situations. And like for Australia, for example, all that happens is they just take out just the right amount of stuff, and then you still
I think
get a video
that's
game,
horrible.
right?
I
So-
think from a point of view of what I do also, it's horrible. Like, for example, in my new cartoon, I'm going to do the sequel for my Dark Souls parody. I'm going to do some gory stuff, you know. I'm going to leave that in, even if they demonetize the video, and, you know, I'm not going to be earning money, and it's going to be tough for me. I'm going to leave the gory stuff because I wanted to express myself. I prefer to not publish the video rather than take out the gory stuff, the funny, you know, slapstick stuff. And, you know, the censorship is always, I know, it's a very hacky thing to say, but it's true. It's always bad. So just don't do it rather than, you know, change stuff up and mask an actual piece of art, you know?
Yeah, I think a couple of things that were really telling for me coming from these members of parliament or these other activist groups. One, like you were saying, Shetz, they were saying, oh, abusers are going to get their rocks off by seeing this.
Yeah.
And the other was they're turning domestic abuse into a game.
Yes.
And those are both fundamentally misunderstanding what it is that they're trying to do with the issue in the game. No abuser is going to get the rocks off on this because they're trying to paint abusers in an incredibly negative light.
Also,
They're trying to make them out to be monsters and horrible and people that we need to be aware of, and like they're not trying to make it into something glorified. So you can't. I think both of those arguments are just totally off base.
And even if you are the abuser, like for example in the Wolfenstein 2, I tried the demo yesterday. You have to shoot a dog in the face. You know, even if you are the abuser, it's very clear. Obviously, if you're a sane person, you just have to be sane in the brain that you're doing something wrong. It's just your perspective. You have to be. If you're insane and you're playing this game or Wolfenstein 2 and you're happy to shoot a dog in the face, the problem of shooting a dog in the face.
It's a different issue.
Before even playing the game, before even playing the game, you're mad in your mind, and you know, it's something that is in you before even playing the game.
Yeah, the issue goes a lot deeper.
It's not going to change anything.
Differently.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to avoid, and I think this is how I'm going to do it, is getting into too deep of a political angle on this. All I want to say about that is, I think that if you're going to pass legislation in regards to this, in my opinion, you can't just come forward like they're trying to do and say children will be harmed if this game is allowed to keep this content in it, because they're making an assertion like that without providing any evidence from a study.
Just like in the past.
So
in the past they did the same.
I think it needs to be
legislation
required.
never has studies. That's the thing.
It needs to be
works that way.
required that in order to pass legislation, you have to prove beyond reasonable doubt with government-funded research and studies that this is actually going to cause this to happen.
Yeah, just
that's
like
never the way it is. It's always political ideology that is at the center of everything being passed. It's all emotional or fear-based or whatever, and I just think that that's a huge mistake. And I think that that's how you can separate whether you pass legislation that is going to harm a group of people. You will know for sure because we have shown that. And if it's not going to, then you don't pass it.
Study.
Yeah, one of the reasons that will never happen is because people usually, like for example, in the U.S. congressmen, there's elections every 2 years.
Right.
To conduct a thorough study like that, you're talking about a large chunk of time.
Right. One group of representatives will have conducted the study, while a separate group will be the one actually enacting the law.
Yeah,
because it's such a quick turnover.
They're too self-interested to allow for something to take that long to happen.
I believe that did happen with a program that Bush put into place. Had something to do, I can't remember what it was, with education. I can't remember what it was.
Talking about No Child Left Behind.
It might have been that.
That's the test score.
But the study continued all the way through the Obama administration and was eventually found that it was having zero positive effects.
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
So
then Obama changed it to his own thing, and that also has had no positive effect as well.
But you're right.
Yeah.
You're right in that it would require that, because you have to have studies that go over the course of years and decades often in order to actually reach a resolute conclusion.
I think that's what happened also like 20 years ago with the Mind Trap game. Not Mind Trap. The one with the house that you have to click.
Yeah. So that's the one where the ESRB was like formed, right?
Yeah,
in
exactly.
America.
They
so
did
Joe
some
Lieberman,
studies.
the senator, he was, and luckily it was him, because any other senator would have not been this forgiving. But yeah, he came, and they had a whole congressional hearing, and Nintendo was there, and Sega was there, and a whole bunch of people were there, and they were saying, hey. And this is the good thing that Joe Lieberman did, is he said, all right, guys, police yourselves. Otherwise, we're going to do it for you. So that's the government saying, hey, we don't want to create a system that rates your games for you. But if you're not going to do it yourselves, and if you're not, all the video game companies aren't going to create their own system to do it.
Behave yourself, yeah.
So he let them do that. And that is what ultimately created the ESRB. And that's been followed for the past 30 years now. But it was a similar situation where that happened. But I can see a lot of these other places looking at it, and instead of giving the games an opportunity to create a rating system to where children won't be able to see this because it's not rated for them, and if they do, it's because their parents showed it to them. It's not their fault. That would be the parents' fault. But that's not what's happening, right? Yeah, they just come in and they're just like, all right, out permanently.
Now it's very sad, because if stuff like that happened 20 years ago, and it comes back again the same way.
And it will continue.
Doesn't
to
make any
back.
sense.
Yeah, as long as video games are seen as just entertainment, nothing but entertainment, that will continue to happen. But movies are no longer, like, nobody mentions that Nazis are going to get their rocks off watching Schindler's List because you watch Jews get tortured, right?
Yeah.
People who are anti-Semitic you could make an argument that they would love that movie because that's what they visualize in their mind, right? It's
But it
similar
doesn't mean
to
that
the
you have
child
to not-
abuser thing
not
for
create
this one, right?
the movie.
But
yeah,
they're portrayed so poorly, that's not even an issue, right? And so we're looking at this game, and it's like they're not glorifying this abuser. He's a piece of crap. So
Yes.
it's a different situation. I can't see how you can draw that parallel without also
but in
looking
my-
at movies and
Yeah,
drawing
in my-
the same parallel.
in my opinion, also, making too clear that this is bad and this is right.
Right, that's too didactic. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
yeah.
too-
Thank you for the term because I
Yes, that's the
me
word.
too.
It's
But,
too
yeah.
educational. I'm telling you
Yeah.
what to think.
Too
Yeah.
educational, to also corny. So you have
Corny.
to leave some. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to leave some doubt in the spectator to trying to move around what he thinks, because
Yeah.
if you make things too much clear, and as you said, it becomes very
Well, then
when
it's
you're
black
watching.
and white, right?
Yeah, exactly. It
Good,
needs
evil,
to
there's
to
no
play with
middle.
your. Yeah, it needs to play with your emotions. Of course, you don't have to do something really, really. It has to be in the middle, right? If you're intelligent, you can understand that that's bad. But you can, in maybe some movies, you can picture yourself in being the bad person. But it's also useful for the narration, to put yourself in the
Right.
shoes of someone bad.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
You have to do that it must be clever, like the execution needs to be very clever. And
Right, because poor
few
execution
games
there
can do
be
that.
pretty-
Yeah,
can be
few
pretty
games
bad.
can do that. I never played Spec Ops: The Line, but I know that's the very recurring example of game that puts you in the shoes of someone that does something horrible. Never played though, so I don't know. But it's
I watched the movie Maleficent.
Okay.
That put me in the shoes of,
I know what you mean.
Now you want
I know
to
what
do
you mean.
one.
Now I understand her. I'm gonna
Now
beat
you
her.
now you understand evil.
But yeah, I mean,
get
bottom line is that if intelligent people do these games, these movies, it's never gonna be an issue, I think. And yeah, like you just have to be clever about it. I
This
guess.
is why they didn't let you kill children in Skyrim, because people are freaking out.
Because people would have freaked out. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Do anything in the game except this one thing that you shouldn't want to do anyways, but people are weird and do things. So
Yeah.
Robaz would have done it a lot.
Robaz.
He made it so you can't.
Yeah, and also
Did the
there's a
mod.
mod where you can kill children.
Yeah.
and also
he
people
installed that.
scream. Yeah, also people scream like PETA, when you see like a deer getting shot by an arrow. But when you do the same in Breath of the Wild, when the only difference is the art style, the only difference is the art style. If you think about it, it's even more, the border between these two arguments. It's even more
It's very
blurry.
thin. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I
true.
think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next question here. I don't want people to get mad at me for talking about politics too much.
Sorry, people.
Okay.
Sorry, people.
Oh my God.
Okay. Well, this
Nah.
one comes from Square Hard Gaming. He wants to talk about aesthetics. How useful can changing the aesthetics of a game or franchise be in rebranding it after it receives some negative buzz? I can't help but feel like one of the reasons we haven't seen anything from FF7 Remake since Square brought it in-house is because they're actually changing the look of the game. Mike once mentioned preferring a cel-shaded version of the Last Order anime to that of the hyper-realistic CyberConnect was going for. The style CyberConnect was going for. I don't think Square is necessarily going that route, but I do
No.
think that changing the look of the game would go a long way in revitalizing excitement for Final Fantasy VII Remake. If the game looked different, could we almost treat it like a brand new product and distance it from the delays and the lack of fan confidence that plagued CyberConnect's old remake? Would Square do this? Thoughts? Okay. I'll tell you what I personally would love.
But
I think it'd be awesome if they did. If because I do think you're right. There's a certain like level where if you almost like revitalize it or bring it out as something new, you almost like restart again. You reset, and the excitement level can reset to some degree. But I don't think there's a chance in fetch that they're ever going to do that with this game. I think that they're going to maintain the same aesthetic that they were before. Maybe they'll change the models slightly or something like that, or improve upon them as time goes on or something, or something like that. You might see like a difference in a lighting system or particle system or something that changes the look to some degree, but they're not. I don't think there's any chance that they're going to go that radically different into like a cell shaded anime style.
And plus you guys work with 3D. You're actually very talented, so you guys understand how much work goes into doing this stuff. So from a pure optimizing perspective, after so much work, redoing stuff will be nonsensical, so only people that maybe, and I'm not saying nothing bad, but some people maybe they don't understand how much goes into making some 3D assets and stuff. And so if you saw what we saw about Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're sure that they're not going to change it. That's too much work already. They have so much stuff. I mean, Midgar is basically like, I think, 1/3 of the game, basically, maybe more. So there's no way they're going to change
maybe
it.
a third of the first disc.
Third,
It's about
you
6
do
hours
go
in
back,
total.
but
So assets are already made. There's no reason from a very resource point of view. It will be like a suicide to try and do like a cell shading thing, because you cannot turn cell shading on stuff that is very high detail. You cannot just switch to cell shade. It should be a huge reconstruction of the entire engine. Actually, what I was asking myself is, will it be maybe more interesting to see a game like Final Fantasy 13 made with the Final Fantasy 7 look? Actually, like from the perspective.
Kaysen has talked about that he likes demakes of that nature.
I love demakes so much.
Yeah, but usually demakes are about pixelizing stuff.
Art,
we always see the pixelizing stuff, but I think that soon enough we will come to the point where
that's what they're doing with
the retro
Final
will
Fantasy
be
15 mobile edition, right? Or
Pocket edition.
Pocket edition,
which I'm so excited for, but they just delayed it till the winter.
You've seen that, right,
15,
Matt?
15, right? Pocket edition
Yeah,
of
the Pocket
15. Yeah.
So that for 13, or
You've seen that, right, Matt? So what do you think of that?
What I think of that?
Of the Pocket edition of Final Fantasy 15, in relation to what you're talking about.
I think since I analyze stuff with my more of a aesthetic look, like if I don't like something about the aesthetics, even if the gameplay maybe is really well done and stuff, it turns me down, so much. And so in this case, the fact that the character looks so kind of strange, like the art direction is very weird to me. I cannot see through that. For me, it's already something that I cannot digest. So maybe, it's gonna be a nice addition, but it looks very weird. I don't know. Like they're very.
I think it looks wonderful. My only gripe is their mouths don't animate when they talk. It shows their face, and they're just like, and the words are going.
Yeah. I agree in the sense that I think I love the idea of a demake, because, like you're saying, demakes up till recently have mostly meant let's just shift into pixel art style, and that's cool. I like that a lot.
NES,
But they haven't ever done a demake into a PS1 level. Game.
That's what that's what I was saying.
And so this game is like sort of doing that, but I hate the art direction of the models in the Pocket Edition. I don't like it at all.
I think that the pre-rendered the pre-rendered backgrounds are even more nostalgic. That there's something more.
Oh, sure. Rather than a full.
If you try to make some I don't mean like exploiting, but doing something that has that taste of retro, that exact taste of mid-90s, that could be a renaissance of that type of stuff.
Dude.
Like, for example, I think the perfect remake will be Final Fantasy IX, of course, because that's the perfect middle-of-the-road game that actually will be better if they
Just
remade some of the
just imagine if they had
assets.
decided to make Final Fantasy VII, remake it, but like with the exact same philosophy. If they had just made these unbelievable pre-rendered backgrounds that you're running around on, like if they modified or evolved the style of a modern game, but with incredibly detailed pre-rendered backgrounds, like what you would be
that way. The backgrounds would basically
like
look real.
They could look basically perfectly real.
Yeah, because of the render, like calculating the lighting, bouncing and stuff. Yeah, super perfect rendering.
I feel like if they had tried to like just evolve that into the modern era, that could have been so interesting. But yeah, I think that there's a lot that could be done with demaking a game into that sort of style with using pre-rendered backgrounds, more of a mid-90s style game on PS1. But anyways, getting back to question here. So, no, I don't think that they will do it, but I do think that there is something to be said about revitalizing excitement about something by bringing it back after a long absence with kind of a new style to it or a new take on it. It can go both ways.
Can you think of any examples of when that's happened? I know it's happened, but I'm trying to think, and I can't.
Duke Nukem Forever.
Duke Nukem Forever. That game took 12 years. That's probably good.
I do know that there's probably something that was real drastic like that. I can't think of anything on top of my head, but what I can think of, again, this isn't drastic, but when they re-announced Final Fantasy 15 as a PS4 game, and they announced it as Final Fantasy 15 versus it being Versus 13 anymore. Or
it did have a different unveiling.
It had a different feeling, and it was much improved stylistically. Obviously, fidelity was higher, but I think that had something to do with revitalizing the excitement for that game, which had been for the longest time very obscure. I think it was 2011, they had some gameplay footage of the inside of the city in Insomnia during the invasion, and they had some behemoths that they were fighting and stuff like that. And then they didn't show anything for the game until E3 2013 or something like that, and when they re-announced it again. And I remember at least that it was like, oh wow, like this is definitely
because
improved visually.
Versus was still cool. Was still a little plasticky because of the PS3, I guess, generation, you know. So, I mean, for Final Fantasy VII Remake, making it amazing, like with the realistic graphics, is the only way to go. There's no other solution, you know. In terms of what the people want, actually, I think that people wants that, but they don't even know that because they fear that the game is gonna be bad for other reasons. So. The aesthetics, I don't think, are the main problem here. Is the expectation of something that is so ingrained in our nostalgia. There are other problems in place, you know. I
think that the other side of the coin of this is that it can backfire on you. So you announce something, and let's say the majority of people are excited about the direction that was going. I think that was probably true. You could say most people saw that first trailer and were like, yes, it's Final Fantasy VII. Yes, it's in the modern era.
Yeah.
Yes, it looks awesome. And then if you come back a couple years later and you turn that into an anime look, let's say something akin to Dragon Quest XI.
Even Xenoblade Chronicles 2, if you think about it.
As much as I would be for that, because that's personally the aesthetic that I think would look best for that world. So you'll have a minority like me that would be happy with that. I think the majority would be upset, like really upset.
It's true.
So
it's true.
I don't think that they're going to do that. I think that, like you were saying, it'd be almost like suicide to do that. But revitalizing it to some extent, if they show us something and it is improved in some way, or they've made subtle changes to it to make it at least appear like, oh, but we've done all this work. You know, we've been really like pulling a lot together in the time that we haven't showed you something. If there's a visual difference and you go, okay, like this is coming along since last time I saw it, then yes, I believe that it could really help to revitalize people's.
I guess the card that they can actually play, like to amaze people and get the excitement will be to do something that the first game didn't do, which is maybe making it a more open world, you know, so having this sense of wonder, like what if I can go here behind the, I don't know, the some things that you maybe some landmarks of the game that you saw for years and years, and now you can go behind that and maybe explore the slums or whatever it's that you can, the original game. If you give that opportunity, if you expand that aspect, that's gonna be enough, I think. Like having that opportunity to do that, that's the only thing that could be actually revamp the interest. If people is so jaded about the game, I'm cool. I mean, I know I'm not super hyped. So what I will get will be the right amount. I think it's gonna be good for me. You know, I wasn't even disappointed by Final Fantasy 15, but you guys are more enthusiastic about it. You know, so having an open world and it's well done, that's gonna be the game changer. If they do the episodic thing and it's gonna be very like corridor style, that's gonna be the huge problem, I think. The aesthetics are gonna be good, I think. It's not gonna be the biggest problem, the aesthetics.
Yeah, I think gameplay, how the game will play, is what more people have on their mind right now than
it's true.
the way the game looks. But like
do you
want to
I do think. Sorry.
I was just going to say, but I do agree that to some degree, if you come in and you show some strong improvements, too vague of a word because that could mean anything, but like some difference in the way the game looked that is showing a progression, like that you've done a ton of work on it, guys. Like, look at all this that we've done. Like, that's, I think, going to definitely help. But I think,
it's gonna be
the
quantity, I guess. Quantity.
The gameplay is really what people want to know about. They want to know how is this game going to play. So
the game looks amazing already. So the only thing they can do, in my opinion, is the quantity of amazing stuff.
Right. Like, but it's multiple.
You know what I mean?
It'll be multiple games.
The game looks awesome, but if you can go across the entire Midgar, that's gonna be the game changer. Like, wow. You know, it already looks better than the first Final Fantasy movie. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this. We've talked about this in the past with the limitations of video games like Skyrim. All the towns have like 7 people living in them and things of that nature. I'm playing through Final Fantasy VII right now, doing live streams on Game Tyrant's Twitch channel, and it's not like I haven't noticed it before, but it's certainly true that the slums, you go through like Sector 7 slums or whatever, and then they have the scene where the top plate is dropped on them and they talk about all the people who died, but it's like there might have been 15 people down there for as far as I know. Like,
exactly.
So if they are able to expand Midgar itself to make it feel like a large
world building is going to be more more
I think
detailed,
that would be really, really exciting. But anyways,
let's hope.
Anything else you guys want to touch on with that?
No, I just don't think Squaresoft will do it. And it'd be sweet if they did it. Just make it like Final Fantasy 15 Pocket Edition. Or I said Pocket, I meant Definitive Edition. That's what I meant.
Can you imagine like a baby Leviathan, like woo? Oh my god, it's gonna be amazing. I don't even know.
Wonderful.
It's gonna be like my parody, basically. It's gonna be.
It'll be like your videos.
I guess. Oh my god, funny.
I'm excited.
Okay,
anyway.
Daniel Imperial has the next one. Going back to animation, and maybe we'll get back in the Mario Odyssey a little bit from what we were talking about earlier. I often hear about musicians being inspired by other musicians and artists by other artists. When it comes to animation, does inspiration come in the same way? And if so, did playing Mario Odyssey and seeing the quality of animation in that game inspire you? That's for you, Matt, so we'll let you start with that one.
Okay, so I think I cannot provide a very exhaustive response for the simple reason that we're talking about 3D animation, so it's a whole different level of aesthetics. Like for me, watching a awesome animated movie, like let's say Brotherhood, I guess, Final Fantasy Brotherhood, it doesn't teach me anything about my 2D traditional animation style.
Are you talking about Brotherhood or Kingsglaive?
Sorry, Kingslave. Sorry, I confused.
Okay.
It's too late. It's 3 a.m. here. Anyway, yeah, Kingslave. Sorry. So rather, a game like Cuphead gives me like 200% more input on what I do,
I agree with
and
that,
inspiration.
yeah.
You know, but a game like Mario Odyssey, sure, it gives me some. How do you say it? Like maybe some inspiration, I guess, some points that I can take. You know, especially I actually noted some stuff here, like, for example, Luncheon Kingdom that you guys haven't played, I guess. There's a kingdom that is very like the palette choice of colors is really well done.
Yeah, I've seen it in the trailers.
And I also have something to say about that kingdom. It's actually low poly. I'm not kidding. It's low poly based. Like I don't know if you remember some graphical changes that Google did to their phones, like a couple of years ago. The material design with the low poly aspect and stuff. Maybe also fractal stuff like that. This kingdom, the Lantern Kingdom, actually plays with that aspect. You know, so it's very low poly. It's called Lanchion because you can see like tomatoes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's very low poly, but it still works because of the palette choices is so good, so well done. You know, like the gradients are. It's difficult to explain. You have to see it. But you know, also in 3D design, I can take as an inspiration maybe the proportion of the creatures, stuff like that. You know, like I take the 3D stuff that I see, and in my mind, I project it onto a paper, and I can say, hey, that Goomba looks awesome. You know, it looks very cartoony. I like it. But when I see something 3D, even a Pixar movie. You know, it becomes like real life, so it doesn't give me too much input. Maybe
it's hard to be inspired.
The comedy, yes. Yeah, exactly. Maybe the comedy actually. The comedy in Mario Odyssey, the way they react to some situation, that's actually something that I take from the game for me as an inspiration. But mostly, you know, 2D, old school 2D animation, like maybe, you know, anime, movies. That's what for me, is more important, you know? And especially because in Mario Odyssey, as I said before, there are realistic assets.
Hold on. I'm in the middle of a podcast. Sorry. Yep. Sorry, guys. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah, I was just saying that in Mario Odyssey, you see many realistic stuff because it's based around traveling the world, you know? So they had less dynamic to invent stuff. They had to incorporate stuff like, you know, traveling around the world. So you have to have the New York City, and you have to have. I don't want to spoil it. So, you know, there are 3D realistic assets in the game. You know, so it's even more far away from my vision. You know, but still, you know, it's a masterpiece. So of course it inspires me. Of course, but less in that sense. You know. What else? Yeah.
I'm just going to chime in here for just a second while you're thinking of the next thing you're going to talk about. So with Mario Odyssey in particular, there was a couple things that you brought up earlier in the discussion that I wanted to touch on. First of all, I'm totally in with the Disney Pixar style of animation. I think that it works for Mario and has worked for him. But I do agree with... I don't know where I stand on this yet. I'm like... Part of me loves it and part of me is like so weirded out by it. But generally speaking, in Mario games, the worlds are varied and they're real different. That's probably mostly because they're usually part of the Mushroom Kingdom, right? So there's a congruency, a consistency across all of it, where they all feel like they belong together. And what's strange about Mario Odyssey is that he doesn't feel like he belongs in a single world I've been to yet. You'll have chain chomps and Goombas and stuff like that populating these worlds.
It's wacky.
Feel something it's not congruent. I'm not going to say it's wrong or that it's not enjoyable or doesn't look good, but it just feels strange.
That's exactly what
the core
of what I wanted to say from the beginning. That's true.
I think New Donk City is probably the strongest example of that, and we already saw that
you'll see.
We already have seen that in the trailers. I played a lot of that level at E3, and I'm in that level right now in my playthrough of the game.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, an obvious choice. I think you had a one-off like that, it would be one thing. But even the opening levels, I mean, like every level I've been through, there's some that feel like that could work really great for a Donkey Kong game, or that could work really great for this, or that could work really great for this.
The Cascade Kingdom, the first one, the prehistoric one. Yeah, it was very like, I don't know, like another game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just odd to see a Jurassic Park style Tyrannosaurus Rex running around attacking chain chomps. It's just, there's something visually about that it's off-putting. It's like, I don't know about this.
The art design, it's the art design coherence with the rest. You know, it's a very
Whether that's right or wrong is a totally different story. I think that it's different. It's like, I've never seen something like that before, and there's part of me that, like, I'm playing the game and it's just I have a feeling, and I'll talk a little bit about the moons too, because you mentioned quantity versus quality and stuff.
Level design,
I'm going through the levels. The levels are well designed and everything, but I do agree that the aesthetic it is something that feels strange. However, I don't know yet whether or not I like it. I'm still undecided.
Episode 2 of the podcast.
So at some point, hopefully soon, I'll make a decision on that. But there definitely is something to that. Now, in touching on what you're talking about with the moons, there is part of me that agrees with that, because you leave a world and you're on the ship, and you can bring up a list as you're hovering over each one, and it tells you how many stars or how many moons there are and how many of the purple coins there are in the level. And so what I tried to do is, because there's a certain amount that you're required to get before you can leave to the next world, so you have to power up your ship.
Yeah,
that's so I would collect those, and then it'd be like, oh, but I see that one, I see that one, I see that one, I see that one, I know about this one over here. I'm just going to go get all of them I can think of. And so I'd go around and I'd spend 2 hours in the world just like covering every inch of it that I could think of. And then I come out of it and I press Y to look at the list, and it's like, I didn't even get a third? I didn't even find a third of them? Really? What? Part of that is overwhelming. Another part of it's exciting, because it's like, oh man, there's so much left in there for me to discover still. The incentive to explore, I think, is higher than certainly the last Mario game was. But more than many Mario games I've played, where it's like, oh man, I got to go back in there and look for the secrets. I've never quite felt that to the same level as I have with Mario Odyssey. So I think to that,
I did when I was younger.
To that degree, it's very effective. But at the same time, I agree that a lot of them are just, like you're saying, they're just literally sitting there waiting to be picked up. You don't have to do anything to get them. And so a lot of it feels like it's inflation, or they're just trying to pad it with more content.
It feels like the right word will be artificial, maybe also difficulty, like adding a a load of moon everywhere, but just to do that, just to add stuff, just for the sake of adding stuff, rather than making it interesting. So,
because I liked that you brought up Sunshine, because Mario Sunshine, when it comes to star collection, was my favorite of all the Mario games. Because like the act of I'm going to get all the stars was extremely satisfying in that game.
Yeah, because it felt unique. Every one of them.
Yeah, every single one of them was tough, or not tough, but at least different. It felt like you're doing different tasks. It's not just, well, it's not like anything in Mario Odyssey feels repetitious. That's not really the right word either, but it felt satisfying.
There are some game mechanics from a place in another, how is it called, like destination, like from all the destination, there are some recurring enigmas that you have to do. Like for each destination, you have like a bunny that you have to grab, and you start to realize the repetition after maybe a couple of worlds, which is kind of, it makes it less unique and more like artificial. That's what I wanted to say,
Sure.
So
yeah, I agree with that.
On top of my head, I have that example, but there are so many examples.
I think that Mario Sunshine did a really good job of making each one of them unique. And I think Mario Sunshine had 120 stars total in the whole game.
I
that.
think
Wow.
so. Maybe maybe Mario 64. And now that I think about it, Mario 64, which was amazing, not only because of nostalgia, but because it was a really good game even for today. The only repetition factor was collecting 100 coins, if you remember. Getting 100 coins will get you a star.
Yeah.
Exactly. That was the only repetition for each level. All the rest was, less stuff, but all unique. You know what I mean? So it was awesome. And here you have to ground pound like a dune, like randomly,
and then you get a star.
Yeah, it feels like it feels strange.
Or not a star, but a moon.
If you ignore that stuff, if you ignore it and you just go with the flow and enjoy the game, it's awesome. It's just that the aftertaste. I can tell you that I basically finished the game. It's kind of strange, and I wanted also to mention that if you think about it, like I saw many people like praising Mario Galaxy, and I think in terms of like what you see, it's very exciting. It's a very exciting game, but I don't like Mario Galaxy, even though it was like praised by, I don't know, like a godsend. I don't know why, by the critic. I feel like Mario Galaxy, it felt like a roller coaster, while like a game like Mario 64 and Odyssey, they feel like a Luna Park. That's the difference, I think. So going for the sandbox level design, I think it's the best thing that you can do, actually. I don't know if you guys prefer Galaxy from the other games. I personally like it, but it's on the rails. It's a roller coaster. It's pretty, but it's not like, oh my god, I can go here and then can go here. That's my only problem, with Galaxy, and I don't like to replay it. Even speedruns are not interesting,
because you're basically just going through it on the same path. Yeah.
Instead in Mario Odyssey, watching speedruns is awesome because they always find a different way to get maybe a moon that is actually, let's see, but if I get this one first, then I can roll down the hill and then I can get the other one, and there are so many. So they try to create paths to make the speedrun even more exciting, even more optimized. While in Galaxy, you have to watch kind of cutscenes of going from a set piece to another set piece. And it's well done, it's pretty, but it's a roller coaster instead of a Luna Park. So it's less exciting for me.
I do have to say that one thing I really like about Odyssey, though, and I think this is partly necessity, is that when you get a moon, it doesn't make you leave the world.
Exactly.
And then go back into it to get a next one. Hey, awesome! Close out. Go leave the painting, or go leave the area. And then
that's one of the things that in Galaxy bothered me. Like like super long animation that was super bothering for me. Like I was, oh my god, stop! Like it was super. I swear that was my reaction. Even though it's a good game, of course.
I really like in Odyssey that you get a moon. He does his little thing, but you stay there. Except for like there are very few of them that they won't do that. Yeah, if you get the triple, 3 moons,
the triple when you kill the
boss or whatever, they'll take you back to the beginning of the level or whatever. But for the most part, you get a moon. It's like, you got a moon, keep going. And I really like that. It kept the pace and the flow going and the exploration going, and so I really, really enjoyed that about Odyssey. But yeah, I do think that it could have done with maybe like half as many moons and made them all feel more unique.
Yeah, and of course, I want to say it, we're talking about still, for me, a 10 out of 10. It could have been like 11 out of 10. The fact that I'm saying this stuff is just because, it's always good to analyze and bring up some ideas. The fact that they did something so bold of having like such assets that are like wacky and out of the context of the aesthetics of Mario, like again the T-Rex, the creepy guys in New Donk City, and the giant. I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to spoil it, but it's very admirable. You know what I mean? Like this is a game that's unique. The theme of traveling the world couldn't be done better than this, I think. The only problem is that again, quantity versus quality. And I think it's a problem that comes from the industry. The fact that the game is like this, in my opinion, I think it's a reflection of the fact that the status of the the game industry is like that, needing to give more options, even though the quality is not like always top.
Yeah, yeah.
The Assassin's Creed syndrome.
Of course.
Was there anything
I guess-
else you were going to say about animation in terms of Mario Odyssey and how it may have inspired you
yeah.
or not? Or
As I told you guys, the fact that it's 3D for me, there are other games that are more inspiring to what I do, actually. So that's it. I think that
okay,
yeah.
sounds good.
The sound design was awesome because
Oh, good.
I always
It's very
look
good.
at, if I can take inspiration from animation, there's so much other stuff, like the sound design. If you think about it, there are I think you played that level. I think there's like an onion that you can capture with a cap. Do you remember that in like the Wooden Kingdom? There's like an
Yes.
onion that you can like stretches. If
Yes.
you hear the sound design when the onion is stretching, the sound is a mix between 8-bit and a modern sound. So it's like the detail is like, oh my god, like having the idea to mix the two audio assets together is genius, because it triggers your nostalgia. At the same time, it's very snappy to hear, so it's very satisfying. That's like the details that Nintendo does. It's crazy.
I love the way that they do that with music too. So when you go to 8-bit Mario, when you go into the walls,
Yeah,
and
of course.
the music
Yeah.
is playing, it shifts more into like a chiptune sort of version, but very subtly. So the song
Very
just sort of
subtly.
like fades into a chiptune version.
Yeah,
of
or
the
going
song.
in the water, you go in the water, and it's like muffled. The sound is
Yeah.
muffled.
Yeah, I
You
like
know,
that they do that.
I love that. It's actually becoming my preferred way of doing music composition for games, especially now picking up Xenoblade Chronicles 2. When you get
Great.
into battles and it interrupts the music of the area with a battle theme over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The battle themes in Xenoblade 2 are freaking awesome.
Oh, cool.
Like
Yeah?
if you
Awesome.
liked the sailing guitar of some of the Xenoblade Chronicles 1 battle themes,
Okay.
it's going to deliver on that. I mean, it has the same feel to it. It's exciting music, but it is so often repeating the first few bars of that as you're getting into a new fight.
So it's not like adjusting like in a dynamic way.
Nope,
Like,
it's
doing that.
fading out the music in the area, bringing in the music of the
Abrupt.
battle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's very
I
abrupt.
see.
And so, if for anyone who's played Fire Emblem Awakening, I love the way that they do it. So they have a piece of music that's playing on the map, but then they have a galvanized version of it, is what they call it in the soundtrack, where when you actually run into another unit and you begin the fight, it like fades into this like aggressive version of the song that's like sounds like really intense. And then when that battle phase ends and it goes back out to the map again, that fades back into the calmer version of the song. And I would like to see that more often in games like Xenoblade 2, where they have a version of the song that can be faded in but still carries the same melody into the fight and then like goes back to travel mode for later, just to avoid that like real abrupt sense of we're changing this. It just feels stunted to me. But
that's how most scores are, and at least for movies and such, it's
oh yeah, totally.
the dynamics of the song change depending on what's happening, but that doesn't mean that they stop a song and start a new song.
Yeah.
I was, before waiting for recording this, I was watching the analysis of Mike about 13 about the music, and it was so on point and well explained. The changing of the pace and the moment, and when someone points that out to you, like, hey, see, this is not like changing the mood; it's like fading out. It's so cheap, and I was like, oh, that's true, So good on you, Mike, because it was interesting to see that thing where they don't do something that is like customized for the moment. They try to be cheap and just there's a very like emotional moment, so let's just take the normal track and make it more soft. It doesn't work like that. You have to do something customized. and appropriate for the moment,
Sure.
and it's like professional people that do that like very well, they do it, but sometimes they for budget reasons, I guess it's not done well.
Yeah, the RPGs are so large. I mean, you can't have unique music for every scene.
Yeah, well, the typical like composer for an RPG is like they write like 60 songs or something. Like it's freaking crazy.
It's crazy, yeah.
It's a lot of music, but I mean, Final Fantasy 13's cutscenes, if you just watch all the cutscenes as one movie, it's like nearing 9 hours long.
Like Metal Gear 4, I guess.
Yeah, so like, a film composer doesn't have to write 9 hours worth of music for their movie. It's a whole nother task.
Yeah.
So it's not possible, but I still think, like you're saying, you can pick, the event planners and the directors can pick an appropriate piece of music to reuse for this scene that fits with what you're
leitmotif and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, good question there. Let's move on to the last one from Tyler White. Now that Square has announced character swapping in battle for Final Fantasy 15, do you think that this will, or do you think, hold on, I'm reading this wrong. Do you think that if they had done this upon release, it would have made 15 a better overall and higher rated game? Okay, so let's talk about that, because there have been many changes made to 15 since it's released.
My inclination is yes. It would have, I mean, I don't know about the rating or whatever, but I think as it is, in 10 years, people will look back favorably on Final Fantasy 15, like very favorably. Like it will be considered a good, solid game. And in part, that's because of all the DLC and all the post-game stuff that they've added. But another part is that the game in and of itself, from the beginning, had enough of the elements that mattered to, like, it's funny because it's been a year now, and I actually do feel nostalgic for a game that just came out like 1 year ago, and that I didn't even finish. I didn't really play Final Fantasy 15 more than a few hours, right? And I'm holding out for the Pocket Edition, but I'm totally going to get into it. But I actually think that, the game's going to be seen favorably in 10 years, and it's in part because of all the changes they've made.
I wanted to bring up when talking about this how The Witcher 3 actually had many changes and fixes and alterations to it post-launch. Now the game was received better on its initial launch than Final Fantasy 15 was. But so I think because of that, because of its initial reception, these were seen as quality of life improvements, just ways to improve and smooth over the experience or add to it or whatever. With 15, because it was received negatively to a certain extent, I mean, mostly positively, but
right,
more
but there was
negatively.
enough.
Yeah, it's seen as, they're fixing something that was broken. It's now. I'm not going to say that they're exactly the same, that they're equivalent, because they're not. Final Fantasy 15 definitely needed an extra year of development. They cut content from it because they had to release the game. Like this is all true. We know this. So it's not. They're
blame
not
the higher
exactly
ups.
the same.
Don't blame
even if I like it,
development.
I understand that it's true. It's absolutely true. Yeah.
So they're not equivalent, but I do think that the overall feeling towards The Witcher 3 versus the feeling towards Final Fantasy 15's extra content is somewhat skewed by negative reception versus positive reception. I think that has some level of effect on the way people see it.
And that's part of why I say it'll be viewed favorably later on, when people don't have that anymore. Like when they just look back on it and see it for what it is, it'll be seen a lot more favorably than it currently is with all the "you sold us a broken game" hype stuff,
Yeah, and I do think that I think you're right. Is in when we have some separation, years of separation from the emotion of it, that people will maybe return to Final Fantasy 15, see some of these quality of life improvements, such as character swapping in battle. And
that's one of the least important ones to me. But
see, for me, it was really important because I really wanted to be able to control all the party members in an action RPG. where
True, yeah.
especially in the legacy of Final Fantasy, where the entire idea all along has been you are controlling a party of people, not a single individual person.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for me. But I will say, while I'm glad they're doing it, there's still part of me that isn't happy with how it's being implemented, because the way that it works is similar to Type 0, where when you have a character in a position, let's say in front of the monster you're fighting, and you want to switch to another character, and the character, say, is on the backside. It brings the character on the backside over to the character's position that you were controlling before, and you take over from the same place on the battlefield. I don't like that. What I would have liked to have seen a lot better is if I'm controlling Gladio and I'm drawing the aggro of the monster to me so that he's attacking me, and I'm using the shield to absorb damage, and then I switch to Noctis on the backside so that I can start doing blindside damage. Because positioning in the game matters. You want to be at the back of the monster to inflict more damage. So being able to switch and have actual positioning matter is something I would have much rather seen. Go ahead.
I think that these problems, they come up for the fact that during the production of this game, you can add stuff later, you can do whatever you want, but if the vision of the game in the beginning, when they are programming, is not coherent, patching stuff like this is always gonna be not, how can I say it, like it's gonna be still like a painting that is like dried, and adding stuff.
That's a good idea.
Things that you paint, it's like an analogy that I'm doing right now, but if you paint something on a dry paint, like a 1 year dry, I guess, almost, because it was out like 1 year ago, it's gonna stick out, and there's gonna be some problems because the vision is not there. So as you just said, you can basically see these problematics, about the aggroing the enemy and stuff. They stick out in a way or another because it was not in the first vision of the game. So, I mean, I'm all for the character, changing the swapping feature, but also, as you said, I got some points here. First of all, the fact that in terms of the theme of friendship, given this opportunity, that's very important. I think
I agree with that.
In the narration, so that will be like enhance the experience for me.
For sure.
Even though I like the experience, but again, that will enhance it. And also the party, just like you said, they had such cool weapons that I didn't care for, like equipping like a super cool shield to Gladio. It was cool, but not experimenting with the actual weapon leaves you with like there's no feedback in your mind. You're not like feeling the actual change in what you're doing, while in the old Final Fantasy, even the visualization of the character, like Cloud, was as big as the other characters. So you have like a more cohesive vision of the game. When you attack with Barret, let's say, is it Barret? Barret in
Barret, yeah.
Barret, yeah.
Yeah, the one.
The character have the same weight, so that the feature of swapping characters is actually, should have been there from the start, obviously. And again, there are so many cool weapons for Ignis that I was like watching the 3D model of him doing like this, and I was feeling nothing. I wanted to use those knives or those cool weapons. So yeah.
I think you bring up a good point, and I do actually want to clarify that this is an overall net positive thing. Like, this is really good. Of course. Like, I'm super happy that it's being done, because of all of the guys, the extra party members I've played so far, my favorite to play is Gladio. Like, the mechanics of Gladio's combat are by far the best. In terms of like the feeling like you have some level of skill. You're not just able to hold down an evade button. Like, you actually have to time your blocks correctly and parry and stuff like that.
Is that how it'll work for this?
Yes.
How it works? You have to actually time it now?
Well, for Gladio. So the Noctis still plays the same as he did before. But Gladio will play in the main game the way that he does in his DLC. And
see, that was one of my big issues, was if you're just kind of holding down buttons, like, it doesn't matter who you're controlling, it just doesn't matter. But if they're changing the gameplay, then that it does make a pretty big difference.
Yeah, so each member of the party will play the mechanics for them will work the same way that they work in their DLC episodes.
Okay.
So I didn't love the way Prompto controlled personally.
I haven't
wasn't a
played the
big fan of
DLCs
it.
though. I haven't played the DLCs because I
Oh,
want
you
to play
haven't?
it.
Oh,
No, I
altogether.
I didn't because I want to. I played the main game, of course. That's why I made the parody, and I was
Sure.
joking about the DLCs, by the way. But I decided to not buy the season pass for the PS4 because I want to wait for the PC, which is my main gaming
smart.
thing at home.
Smart.
Yeah, so I want to have a more. I want to play them back to back. As soon as
Yeah,
they
that's
are all
a
out.
good idea. That's a
Yeah,
good idea.
I think it's
I
good.
haven't dabbled with the latest one yet, with the Ignis DLC, but he controls differently, obviously, than the other guys too. So it's really cool that you're going to be able to switch between those different play styles and mix them up. And and like you said, it's going to be nice that I get equipment for a character and give it to the character, and now I'll actually be able to play with the character and see how the equipment changes what's going on. Now, one thing I wanted to ask, and this is probably more of a question for the audience, for anybody who
my audio actually was out for a second.
Oh,
so-
mine was too.
Oh,
Oh,
you
okay,
guys
okay,
back,
okay.
You guys back now? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. So,
Okay.
what you said
So I
something
was
about
just-
the weapons? Yeah,
I was just going to say, no, I like what you're saying about how
experimenting with the weapons that you can
yeah,
use.
you give equipment to that guy. Now you can play as that guy and see what they do.
I mean, isn't that like the old Final Fantasy? If you think about it, it's just
Sure.
it's the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask this is probably more to the audience, to somebody in the audience who knows or has paid closer attention. What I'm curious about is how the AI are going to behave now, because did they have these mechanics for, say, Gladio, the way his battle mechanics work, which are fundamentally different from Noctis? Was he programmed to use those mechanics as an AI? And then now they're just unlocking the ability for the player to do them? Or did the AI behave differently, and now that they've designed or fully implemented Gladio's mechanics, is the AI now going to use that when you're not controlling him? Or are they the same? Is what the AI's toolkit for the character the same as what the player's going to be? Have they integrated that together? And is that going to change game balance at all? That's
I would
the
guess
one
that
question
it's
I have.
not, but it could.
Or is Gladio going to play, let's pretend that they hadn't fully designed Gladio's mechanics yet. So he plays when you're not controlling him the way he did in the base game. But then when you switch to him, you unlock the new mechanics for Gladio and you play it differently.
I could see that being the easier way for them to go.
Yeah. So I'm curious about that.
I'm also thinking that the game might be broke by these new additions. And now that you think about it, having these variables, these new variables that are very complicated from the AI standpoint and from the coding, I guess, whatever, is gonna be. I don't know if it's gonna like break the game.
That's my ultimate question is character swapping going to? I mean, the game is already very, very easy.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
If they do this, how is it going to affect game balance? Do they have a patch that's going to come along with it for game balance? How is it going to affect? That's mostly what I'm thinking.
If they're doing another year of updates, then I'd imagine
that they would be balancing.
They have
But
that in mind. But actually, that's a question I have right now. How many people is this targeted at? You know what I mean? Like, how many people are going to replay Final Fantasy 15? Maybe more this way. But a year after the game came out, what percentage of that install base is going to bother with this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or how many people would play it for the first time
this way
because of it? You know what I mean? Like, how many people will be drawn in because, we've added this new thing and this new thing and this new thing or whatever. I remember a couple weeks ago, I don't know if it was last week, week before, I think a couple weeks ago, we were talking about, are they going to eventually make it so that the DLC episodes are seamlessly integrated into the story so that you can just sort of play through the game and then go and do this and not have to leave into a menu and go into...
Like when you see the
play that
flashback
part.
for Prompto or whatever, you get
exactly.
to jump into the
if that can be made into part of the flow of the game. And I remember asking, I think, this question, like, Will they be able to do, now that they have all of these different characters and the way that they play, can they make character swapping a thing in the main game too? And obviously they can. So it'll be interesting to see if they will do that as well. I think if they do that, if they make the DLC episodes a seamless part of the main story to where you can just seamlessly go into that part and play that part of the game, without having to go into a menu to access it, the game will have a very, very different feel from launch to
imagine
now.
Though,
yeah.
I was thinking that maybe imagine how difficult it would be to reinvent the pacing of the whole game now that you have this new variable, which is like, all of a sudden during the train scene, you get teleported into it's like a snowy level, I guess. I know that I didn't play this before.
Sure.
But, in terms of pacing, the DLC is a product that is made for being consumed as it is, you know what I mean? But when you take these new pieces and you attach them to the game, the feel for the whole game, which is important, the whole flow of the game in its entirety, it can be broken, you know what I mean? So it might be even more interesting if they're gonna put these memories in a later part of the game, or maybe even before. They have to integrate them in a way that in the narration it's interesting, because if they fill the gaps like right now, when I was on the train and all of a sudden Prompto disappeared, that can also be an interesting cliffhanger if you think about it. But if you can leave the moment, it's not even a cliffhanger anymore. You know what I mean?
You just keep going.
I know that in Final Fantasy 15 the gaps are too big, so it's still not the answer doing stuff like that, because there's a huge gap. So how can you do that? Because if you fill the gaps, then there's no wonder. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So integrating.
That was more or less my point when we talked about it.
I think it's gonna be like a menu selection, because it's too difficult to integrate.
Yeah.
I guess.
I just I think that with the introduction of character swapping, the ability to take the vehicle off-road, which was not available at launch, so being able to drive the car around the world.
That's the better one.
Having all of these stories that were not in the game originally available now, with Arden DLC coming up, and it's all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
Like, there is definitely a sense that the reception to that game will be different to the one that came out at the beginning. And that is the exact reason why I have chosen to delay reviewing the game until after it's all done. Now, I'm not going to forget about what the game was like at launch, and I will compare and contrast them and say, this is what it was like when it came out. This is how we had, and this is what it is now. I'll account for that, but that's the reason why I'm waiting, because anything I say now, or had I said a year ago, would be so outdated. I kind of felt the same way when I reviewed Super Smash Brothers Wii U. I reviewed that like right when the game came out, and I was like, oh man, like these new characters. I talked about some characters that weren't in it. And I mentioned like Roy or something. Like Roy's in the game now, so you get a rush of comments when Roy gets announced, saying Roy's in the game now. Roy's in the game now. So your review's outdated.
Yeah, there's more variety. Yeah.
That's kind of why I want to wait on reviewing 15 to make sure that everything is accounted for and it's complete before I actually talk about it.
But don't wait too long, because you got to play that multiplayer while it's hot, while other people are actually playing it.
Comments,
right?
Yeah.
But seriously, that is a critique of a lot of games that in the future, like Splatoon. Try reviewing Splatoon right now. No one's playing that game. Everyone's playing Splatoon 2. And so your review is actually hurt. It's damaged by not doing it when it's hot and when everyone else is doing it, if it's a multiplayer game. Sometimes.
Yeah.
But seriously, could like Final Fantasy 15 be like one of the worst example of retcon, patching, extravaganza? Like now that I think about it, I think it's like the most crazy example. Now that I think about it.
To some degree, yeah, I think so.
On top of my head, I can't think of
I can't think of other things. I like the way that they changed.
No Man's Sky.
Oh, No Man's Sky.
Oh yeah, No Man's Sky is actually a really good game now.
You know what I would say? Final Fantasy 14, but they actually redid the whole thing.
Yeah,
but
it's almost
they
like a
had
new game.
two choices. If Final Fantasy 14 came out today, I wonder if instead of taking it and redoing everything and putting it out 2 years later, that they would have done this and started just putting out DLC and extra content online, and then the game slowly gets better and better instead of the way Final Fantasy XIV ended up working out.
Yeah.
But people feel more betrayed when the game is mostly about single player. When stuff gets changed, I feel like people have this human response of being, even if the game is gonna be like perfect in maybe a year, there's this human emotion of the first impression that I try to not to
It's
think
important,
like that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? But especially for you guys, you guys are a huge enthusiast of Final Fantasy more than me, So I can feel that you have like the first impression will kind of betray your expectation, So that's gonna be, it's like a girlfriend, like it's like a bad love story, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like the concept.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be always there, this idea, even if the game is gonna be perfect in a year from now. It's just a human response. There's nothing you can do about it.
Which is partly, I think, why a lot of people who, let's say, they weren't very fond of Final Fantasy 15, they're not excited about all of this stuff that's being done to try and improve the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because to them, it's like their first response is already there. They already have their negative feelings, and it's just like, please move on to something else. There's no amount of retconning or improvement or optimization that's going to make them like the game.
But do you think it's a good way of thinking, or do you think it's like narrow-minded?
I do think to a certain degree, it is. I think that. Well, when you're talking about paid DLC, there's a whole different element, because it's like, I paid for this base game hoping that it would be a complete experience for me or whatever. Now, I just want to quickly make a caveat that I'm not one of the people who says Final Fantasy 15 was an incomplete game at launch. I would not go that far. I think that there's much they could have added to add context to make it more powerful, but I've never been of the opinion that the game was incomplete. Like,
it was not like standing on its own legs.
It's like, oh, there's a whole piece of it missing. There's no ending, or there's no this, or there's a beginning, middle, and end. There's a story that's told. There are pieces of it I wish I had seen that would have helped me to be more emotionally connected to it. But I certainly can't agree that the game is incomplete. So I'll start with that. However, cat's hungry or something.
Cat's aside.
Came in the room.
So cute.
So that being said, I do think that there's something to be said, and a valid reason to be upset, that much of that optimization, much of that fixing, well, there's a lot of it that's free. So the character swapping is a free patch. The scenes that they added with Shiva on the train are a free patch.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of it that's free, and that's commendable. But I think a lot of people are going to be upset because it's like there's a whole story with Gladio and Prompto and Ignis, especially with Ignis. I think Ignis is the biggest one. Yeah. Ignis walks in and says, "Oh, I'm blind now."
I know.
What?
That's the biggest
How did that happen? How? Don't bother to ask. No
For
questions,
$5,
please.
You can find out.
Now I have to pay money to find out how? That's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths, and I think that's totally valid. Totally valid.
You should say, please don't touch me.
From your parody. Exactly.
Please don't touch me.
Shetz
oh my God.
touched on it in the parody that he made. He has some jokes that go over that.
No, dude, you stole the show. You stole the show because it's so perfect. The fact that Ignis is very, I think kind of not looks like you, but behaves like you sometimes. Like you're very calm, I should say. And so the fact that he
thought out,
it was perfect. The how can I say it? Like the fact that you interpret his character. So the comedic effect was even more awesome when he becomes he maybe says some bad word, and yourself you don't usually cuss, so it was perfect. And so it added to the whole thing. So
for anybody
props to
watching who isn't aware, I did some voice work
Ignis,
for Shetz's Final Fantasy 15 parody.
and a narration too. Think
Yeah,
about
I
it.
did.
We might put a link
Did
to
a
that
couple.
down in the description too.
Yeah, I'll do
Awesome.
that. For
But
sure, so you
beware
can-
of language for all the people.
Yeah,
just in
Of
case.
course.
Just in case you don't like language. Yeah, there is some in it. But
Yes.
in any case, I think that there's valid reason for people to be upset about this whole season pass thing, and that these stories are hidden behind paywalls. So I don't want to say it's totally narrow-minded because of that, but I do want to say that there is a certain level of closed-mindedness I think that people have after a first impression that
Yeah.
I think, at least myself, over the last 10 years or so, I've tried really hard to break myself away from the tendency to do that, because I have done that a lot, especially when I was younger, where my first
Yeah.
impression of something was really bad and I wrote it off and it sucks and screw this and like whatever.
Yes.
But upon revisiting it, learned to really, really appreciate it. So,
yeah, just being more mature, I think. So it's all good. I think having that thought process is just more mature. So it's good.
Right.
yeah.
Give
And
it a
so
chance.
for that reason, that's why I'm trying to withhold or not do this review until all of this has been done. I've had a chance to revisit Final Fantasy 15 and see everything it has to offer and discuss it with people even further than I have already, and really sort of formulate an opinion after that. So I don't know. It's hard to say. It's case by case basis, but I wouldn't blame anybody for being upset, but I would also try to at least foster openness to the fact that these developers were it was not an easy situation that they took on. The development of the game was very, very messy, and they were under contract to finish by a certain date, and there were just a lot of factors.
Plus, by watching the comments on YouTube and stuff, you always have this reaction that is not even. I think many times it's not even coming from the fans. It's just like the train of hate that people likes to drive. How do you say? I don't know. Like drive the hate train just because, rather than having like good opinions about it. Like
Yeah,
let's
happens.
thumbs up the first bad comment that says stop making this trash. It's easy to jump on the train.
Totally. Hive mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's the end of our topics for today, everybody.
We're done.
Thank you.
We finished.
Thank you for watching, and thank you, Shetz, for coming on and talking with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much,
anytime,
guys.
man.
If anybody
it was an
wants
honor.
if anybody wants to check out his YouTube channel, there will be a link in the description. But you can just search Matthew Shezmen. Shezmen, and he's got lots and lots and lots of really funny parodies.
Thank you so much.
Doom and Fallout,
Metal Gear
and,
5, Witcher
Metal Gear
3.
5, Witcher 3, Final
watch
Fantasy 15, obviously.
Exactly. Watch the Final Fantasy 15 one because of the collaboration. I guess
Yeah,
it was
And
really great.
That link specifically will be in the in the description as well.
Nice.
But otherwise, if you're listening audio only, you can find us on YouTube at Dark Pixel Gaming, and look forward to seeing you on YouTube, I guess. If you're listening audio only,
Because we see you.
I have no idea how many people. I mean, we always say this. We have no idea how many people follow this podcast audio only. Like, not a clue, not a single idea. There could be thousands of you, and I would not know that. So, I don't know. We'll see. There do seem to be a growing flux of people that say, I listen to this at work or something like, or driving on the way to work or whatever. So
Awesome.
you're there. You're there. Oh, I know you're there. Come watch our YouTube videos if you haven't seen them before. Dark Pixel Gaming. Till next time, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support, and have a great week.
Thanks for having me. Bye bye.
Nvida.
Goodbye.